Oh, hi, Dane.
Hi.
We're super happy to have Dane Liu with us tonight. I don't know if you've all had a chance to see her book, but we're going to show it to you in a minute. But I'm just really excited because it's just such a sweet and wonderful picture book. And we have it in the store. And when it came in and I saw that she was from Portland, I thought, oh, hey, I can get a hold of her and maybe she'll come and talk to us. So as always, I'm going to quickly turn off the comments. If you have any questions, just keep them in your head, and then I'll open the comments back up for questions towards the end of the interview so that we can actually see Dane while we're talking to her. There we go. The first question I was going to ask you tonight is, I always ask the origin story of a book. That's always my first question. And this one is especially poignant because it's this gorgeous, beautiful picture book, and it's ultimately really sweet and happy, but it's about a hard topic, about leaving friends, moving to a new place, a new country where you're feeling especially like you don't fit in. And I wondered how this book was born and what the origin story of this particular book is.
When I first, the seed for this story came about when I was in my mentorship for We Need Diverse Books. And it was an unbelievable opportunity to work with my mentor, Jim Averbeck. And he and I were editing several of my stories at the time. And this was maybe about halfway through the mentorship already. And I told him a childhood story. And he said, that's a really beautiful story. And literally the moment we hung up, I started typing. And the first draft was born that hour. And it looked very different from the book today, of course. As we know, we go through so many revisions before we can even approach anything. So that's kind of the origin. But of course, as you know, this story is based on my childhood experience of moving from one country to another. I was born and I grew up for the first quite a few years of my life in northeastern China. And then we moved to the US, and I didn't speak the language. We didn't know anyone. We were coming for my dad's studying opportunity. And so there were just all these stories that I guess carried with me and still carry with me. But I didn't really identify the story as a picture book right off the bat. Someone else actually did. And I think that's kind of interesting about writing, your writing journey, is sometimes, you fall onto these stories accidentally. Something will just spark that inspiration on your behalf. And then the rest of the work is up to you.
And I imagine that there are probably people in the audience who aren't, haven't seen the backside of books getting made, and who don't know that for most people, when you submit a picture book, you're not necessarily making all the decisions about who's going to illustrate the picture book after you've sold your book. And I'm just real curious how that, because it's such a personal story, how that experience was for you of, working with an illustrator and then seeing your work for the first time with the pictures and, just seeing that sort of come to life in a way that always is a little unexpected because you never quite know what it's going to look like.
I've been asked so many times by different people whether I knew Lynn before she illustrated this book.
Yeah.
And she and I did not know each other, even though actually I spent quite a few years of my childhood in Toronto, and she lives in Toronto. So we're both Canadians as well. And so usually what happens is you submit a story, an editor, let's say, you sell it to the publisher. The art director will approach you with different choices that he or she may be thinking, right? They're thinking about someone who does not only complement their illustration style with your text, but also take it a step, in a direction that you don't expect, which is, I think, the most beautiful part of this genre, is that it's such a team effort to realize this story. I always think of this book as we're co-creators, Lynn and I, right? And so they approached me with a few choices, including Lynn. And the moment I saw her art, I just thought it was so dynamic. And, it has this kind of soaring quality. And I really appreciated it. And so we went forward.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first got to see the actual like proofs for this particular book?
You know, I have to show you something funny because, you know, I did not show her any photos. There's kind of an unspoken rule of how the writer should not meddle.
Yes.
And, you know, you shouldn't, for so many reasons. I think the most important reason is that you want this person to create the world, right? You're both world building. And I don't want to restrict her. The wonderful surprises that Lynn has embedded into her portion of the storytelling is beyond my imagination. And it should be that way. That's the beauty of it. And so, one of the really funny things, every page has something that I really appreciate, you know, like for example, this page with the cooking, just the condiments on the side and the way the wok is actually exactly how our kitchen was when I was growing up. And this picture of Nai Nai, which means paternal grandmother in Mandarin Chinese, especially in the northern region where I'm from, that literally looks like my grandmother.
Oh, that's so cool.
So when I showed my parents the proof, they couldn't believe that this looks so much. And, you know, my friends who know my parents, when they see the parents in this book, they say, doesn't that look like your dad?
That's
you know, did
cool.
you show her a picture of your parents? And I said, no. It's
very cool, because that's honestly something that I really appreciated about the book was that how well she captured just that whole all the cultural things that like go around a story that add authenticity to the images without like yelling and calling attention to themselves. Just the fact that they're there, it makes it feel more real. And so that was one thing I really appreciated about what her work on this story was just so neat.
Yeah, like you're saying, you know, these details, of course, she included so many beautiful paper cuts because that's very much an important element of the story. But this page, you know, this is the very first page. If I may, I'll just read a few lines to be able to get into the setting. So the story begins here, and it says, in our town, the winter howls. Heavy flakes swarm and glaze the earth. Kish, skish. Yue Yue and I slide, holding on to each other. She is my neighbor and my best friend. Together we teeter and shimmy and giggle to school. So here are the two little girls. Some of the details I really love. For example, it's my phone, so I'm just going to move it.
That's okay. No, we can see it pretty well, actually.
You know, you see these hand muffs on the moped, and just these, you know, and you see this because I talked about in our town the winter howls. It's a very cold place, and the way the people are dressed, and someone is trying to rush to work, you know, just I could not have imagined these.
Yeah.
I wrote those lines.
Yeah. Well, and just the fact that the moped is there, I mean, for me, it was like, oh, hey, that actually looks like, you know, it's a moped, not a car, you know, and it's like it captured that. And I also love that some of the snowflakes were also the same shape as the paper cutouts. You know, there was just so much stuff in there that. Well, I was going to ask you if you had a favorite image. Hey.
You know,
at least we see with front side. But you already shared some of them. So do you have others that you were especially loved?
I would say my most favorite image is one that I advocated for toward the end of this journey. I didn't think of this until pretty late in the game, and I wish I had thought of it earlier. So I contacted our editor and I said, if it's possible to put this in, I think it would really add a meaningful element to the story. So like the title says, friends are friends forever. And Lynn had already drawn this photo of her friend back in China that, you know, she's staying with in terms of her friendship being forever. And here she actually wrote a letter. So I asked my editor if it would be possible for Lynn to create some kind of evidence where their friendship is sustained beyond this photo.
Right, right.
Maybe correspondence or something else, if that's possible. And as we know, the main character in this book, her name is Dan Dan, and that's Dan Dan in Chinese.
Oh, neat.
And there is Yue Yue in Chinese. And Yue Yue was, her best friend in the story back in China. So it's a wink at the fact that their friendship is beyond this photograph, right? That's active.
It's still going on. And that's very cool. I think that's the other thing I love so much about picture books is there's that interplay. I mean, that is the thing about picture books, I think, is that there's the interplay between the words and the pictures. And really one doesn't quite exist without the other in its fullest form. Like they need each other. And I think that is just one of the things that's so neat about them is the, what you can add with the pictures, what are you adding with the words? And that's just really neat. I'm going to switch this over a little bit. And of course, we talked about the paper craft, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, so I will say it now. We are going to do a little paper craft. So if anybody in the audience wants to grab paper, just any kind of paper, even if you have scrap paper or, a sheet of copy paper because your printer is close by or whatever, and some scissors, that would be awesome. If you want to grab those really quick. And I'm curious, while we're giving people a chance to go and grab those, if is this paper craft an activity that your family does and did do around Chinese New Year? Yeah. That's awesome.
I think my kids have been activated by this book even more so than before. Yeah. They're fairly young, so I think even last year this was too much of an activity. But now my older child, who's 6, is very into it.
Yeah. Now, is that because I know we in our family we do Chinese New Year a little bit, but I wasn't familiar with this craft. Is that something that's used in Chinese New Year through most of China or certain parts of China?
China is, like I say in my author's note, is such a vast country, right? With so many different regions and traditions and cultures within this country.
Right.
And so this tradition was, I think, both very specific to the area where I grew up, but also very specific to that time in history.
Ah, okay.
Because my parents' generation didn't do it. And I think kids today probably are too busy with something much more high tech.
Yes, yeah.
And maybe more man-made, which I think is, plus and minus. Yeah. But when I was young, there weren't as many forms of entertainment that were just readily available to you. So you had to create.
Yes. Yeah.
You had to create the magic. You couldn't buy the magic.
Right.
And and I so appreciate that. I try to instill that in my kids now, right? Especially living in a city like Portland, where there's this abundance of nature. Let's go outside.
Yes, yeah.
And so we're very much a family, and I'm very much an individual who wants to, that's why I'm a writer, but I want to create rather than just receive.
Yes, yeah. So if everybody's been able to get their paper, we can start.
And you can have a square that's large or small. I like having a variety because then your snowflakes are radically different from each other. It's nice to have. And usually I use that extra strip and make them. That's how I got this.
Yeah.
So there's no waste. So you have a square. You fold it in half into a triangle. In half again into a smaller triangle, in half again into an even smaller triangle, right? now that you have this, this is what you work with. You can keep folding if you have very sharp scissors and very strong hands. But I'll end my journey. And then you can, you can have straight edge, square edge, round edge. That's really up to you. I think that's the beauty of paper cutting. It's really a partnership between guessing, your imagination and your hands. So, and every time you do this, it's going to be different. So I kind of scalloped my edges already.
Sorry, everybody. My phone keeps sliding down.
I know. Mine is propped on a box. And sometimes I kind of guess. I mean, I always kind of guess what I'm doing in terms of paper cutting. I think the very skilled paper cutters will have a plan.
Right. Well, and I know that even though this tradition may or may not have been relatively regional or relatively short-lived, I mean, paper cutting in China is a craft.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's something I explain.
I've seen such beautiful stuff. And
absolutely
intricate.
Yeah. And during the holiday season, even today, I see paper cut hangings around the Lunar New Year season, because the differently cut animals or fruits. I say in my author's note, for example, I'm going to have to look at exactly what it is. I know fish means abundance. So peony for fortune, peach for long life, fish for abundance. And of course, there are the zodiac animals.
Yes.
So I would love to be able to cut you a tiger right now. But
But I warned you too late that this was happening.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, I would have been sufficiently prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so for those of you who aren't aware of Chinese New Year, Chinese New Year's Eve is the 31st and Chinese New Year's Day is the 1st. But unlike our New Year's Day here in the West, it goes on for multiple days depending on the country. Chinese New Year, I believe, is 14 days. Roughly.
Yeah, it's I think it's 15.
Okay.
But once you pass the first 5, in my family, once you pass the first 5, the eve you spend with your close family, so grandparents, your own family, very good close level, and then day 2 or on the day of, you go visit some other close relatives, and then you start, rippling through the rest of your family. And I feel like when I was younger, by day 5, it's kind of, calm.
No, I know. We typically in our family, although we'll have to see, we might do something different this year, but we have done the Lantern Festival, which is always at the end of it. We're lucky enough in Portland to have the Chinese gardens, which have really fun things at Chinese New Year, in case anybody wants to check it out. That wasn't an intentional plug there, but I guess we're doing a commercial for the Chinese garden too. But the other thing is that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily aware is that Lunar New Year is celebrated by other countries as well, including Vietnam and Korea, and they all have their own slightly different traditions, number of days they celebrate, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to open this up. And the other thing I'm going to do while I'm opening this up is I'm going to turn the comments back on. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to post those. And I think that the one thing that I would ask while we're giving people a chance to ask questions is, What experience do you hope kids will have with this book? I mean, what do you want? What do you hope they will take away from it?
I hope they relate to this book in different ways. I hope they see themselves, for some children, they will see themselves physically. And I think that's really important,
Yes.
especially, you know, when I was growing up in this country, I didn't see myself in the books I read. And so I think that's crucial. But deeper than that also is, so I've been receiving feedback from librarians, teachers, parents via social media. And it's so heartwarming when I get a comment from a parent who says, you know, when my daughter saw the cover, she thought it was her and her cousin hugging.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
and that is just, oh, melt, right?
Yeah.
And then equally heartwarming is when I get a comment from a librarian who says, our community is full of families who are military families. And these kids are not Asian American. And yet it's really fantastic when I witness kids connect with this book on that moving, being the new kid, code switching level, right?
Yeah.
And there are these boys who are non-Asian seeing themselves through this Asian character. And I'm like, yes.
That is very, very neat.
That is
well,
the point.
It just goes to show what we should have known all along, which is, yes, we can have diverse characters and we can still see ourselves in those characters. So that's
absolutely. Cool. I mean, this is how we walk into the full humanity of humanity, right? Because there is no way any of us can have all the experiences, whether it is, you know, cultural or racial or any other kinds of man-made categories, right? We have to walk into those experiences via books.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to reveal this. I didn't see any questions pop up. So now Chris, Chinese New Year.
You are a pro.
I am pleased. Now I can have decorations in my house. Oh, yay! So I hope you will all check out Dane Liu's book. It's called Friends Are Friends Forever. It's a picture book. So whether you find it at our store or at the library, I hope you'll go look for it. And I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I so appreciate our independent bookstore. Of course, that was going to happen. I so appreciate all the independent bookstores. You guys have been so supportive, and I think indie bookstores are key to the community of readers and writers, and for us to flourish and continue to support each other. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And just to remind everybody, this interview will get posted to the Instagram tonight. So if you missed any of it, you can go back and watch it. And then it will also get posted to YouTube sometime in the next few days. I have to work on getting that up. But thank you again so much for joining us.
Bye.
Good night.